On Point with Garrett Weaver, episode number 68. Let's roll. There exists a threat, from anti-hunting groups to politicians trying to give our land away, and we won't stand for it. Those vast western landscapes provide the space for our wildlife to thrive, and a place for hunters and anglers to fuel the fire that sparks their soul. In this show, we share our love of hunting, fishing, and conservation. Here, we provide the foundation to meet these threats through passion and the grit of the American outdoorsman. Welcome to the Western Huntsman Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 68 of the Western Huntsman Podcast. This is Jim Huntsman coming at you from the Broken Tine studio right here in Hayden, Idaho. Nice sunny spring day, really enjoying this weather. This episode is brought to you by Phelps Game Calls, the call company of the Western Huntsman. And reminding you guys, I don't know if you've been out turkey hunting yet, but I've only been out once. But I took my black bat turkey call from Phelps and went out there, and I didn't get any responses. It was kind of like a half effort because we had to just kind of, in full disclosure, our house is up for sale, and so we had a showing, so we had to leave the house. This is partly why these episodes are being taken forever to get out, but I have a ton of episodes lined up here. But anyway, I go out and didn't get any responses, and but still had a ball, and I'll be going out this weekend, and hopefully you guys are getting out there and you've got your Phelps Game Calls. You can get them at the retailer. Jump on PhelpsGameCalls.com. Use promo code Huntsman10 for 10% off on those calls. Now, that doesn't matter. Whether you're getting turkey calls or elk calls or predator calls or deer calls or waterfowl calls, they've got it all, and it's really good stuff. It's a great company story, and they really back it up. It's just great people to do business with. So if you are in the market, definitely check out PhelpsGameCalls.com. It'll be in the show notes, and use the promo code Huntsman10. I want to announce real quick before we get into it. I got a couple things for you. We have a winner for our youth coloring contest, and I want to thank everybody that sent in their artwork of that big mule deer buck, and a very good job. Everybody did a great job. The coloring contest was not a, who's the best colorer. It was just a youth coloring contest in which I kind of turned it into a raffle, and we drew a winner. The only thing is I let the winners know, and let the parents know, and I kind of wanted their permission to announce the name on the podcast, just because, a lot of people listen to it, and it's a kind of a weird world out there. They didn't exactly say yes, and they didn't exactly say no, so I don't feel comfortable just saying their name. So we're going to kind of leave that anonymous, but I do want to congratulate her. She's 6 years old. Her name was drawn, and she is the winner of our coloring contest. We're going to do another one. So if you guys are hoping to do that again, just let me know. But in a few months, we're going to do probably another coloring contest for our youth hunters that are too young just yet to get out there in the field. But we're going to get the juices flowing early. So that is kind of that. Hey, I want to announce for any of you that follows Elk Bros. If you follow Elk Bros, they have this new thing on their website called Hunting Buddy, and you go on there. If you go to elkbros.com and you just click the Hunting Buddy tab, basically is how that works, and you kind of make your own profile. And the whole purpose of that is for, let's say you've been solo hunting for a long time, and you're sick of being alone. You want a hunting buddy, or you're a first timer and maybe you want to find a mentor, or you're just maybe your hunting buddy that you had a plan to come out west and hunt elk or something, kind of bailed on you, and you're up a creek without him, and you want to find somebody else to go with. So that's kind of the idea behind this. And so Elk Bros put this together on their website, where you go in and make a profile. You can go in and like search other profiles to see if it's almost like a dating game, right? It's like dating, for me, I think you got to be more picky than you do when you're just dating. because a date could go bad and it's just you're out whatever dinner costs and whatever else you do, right? But you pick the wrong hunting partner, and you could be in trouble. That could be just kind of a mess and ruin your whole hunt. So that way you can go through and you could learn about different individuals who are also looking for hunting partners, and you guys can kind of connect there and hopefully plan a hunt and make a new friend, get a good friendship going out of the whole deal. So check it out. I think it's kind of cool. I think it's a super cool idea, actually. Joe over at Elk Bros, his wheels are always turning, man. He's always got ideas and he's just really creative, and this was a great idea. I think that it's something that has been missing for a long time, because you see it all the time on social media. People are posting, hey, anybody want to go hunt, or anybody know this area, blah, blah, blah. Jump on Elk Bros, make a profile, and you can find you a decent hunting buddy without, and just reduce the risk of somebody that you might not mesh well with. So great idea, Elk Bros. Huge shout out to those guys. Let's move into, so last week I put out the salmon episode with Congressman Mike Simpson, and in my intro, I kind of went off on like a rant, and I do that periodically. I get on a rant, and I get as if you listen to it, you can tell I get pretty passionate at times. I got a ton of messages out of that, and I want to thank everybody that wrote in, telling me what they thought of kind of what I talked about in that intro prior to the Congressman section coming onto the show. Thanks for the feedback. But I want you guys to know, like, I'm serious about that stuff that I talked about. I'm serious about conservation. I'm serious about public land. I'm serious about wildlife management that is based in science and not emotion. I'm serious about protecting our hunting rights and heritage and privilege. It's an interesting conversation too, because I heard somebody, I was listening to some podcast, I don't remember what it was, and somebody was like, well, I think hunting is a privilege, it's not a right. I would disagree with that. Hunting is a right. However, it's hard to define it that way, because there is a privilege aspect to it, because you could lose that right individually by, say, breaking the law or poaching or something like that. So I get why it is looked at as a privilege, but for me, I think as long as you are following the law and you are an ethical hunter, hunting for you is a right. I'd be curious what your guys' thoughts are on that. If you wouldn't, just send me an email if you wouldn't mind. Jim@thewesternhuntsman.com. Send me an email. Is hunting a right or is it a privilege in your mind? And explain. I think that's a good discussion point. But getting back to what I was saying there, in terms of conservation and everything that I talked about in the fighting that's going on, I kind of wanted to put my money where my mouth is, and I've had this idea rolling around for a long time where this show is as fast as we are growing and as many downloads as we get, and that is all thanks to you guys who are helping us share it and get the word out about the show. It's you guys are my best advertisement, so I really appreciate that, by the way. That said, this show is not like some big moneymaker, and I'm totally cool with that. I don't really care if it ever becomes a big moneymaker, but I do want to try and raise money for the things that I believe in, and I feel like you guys believe in as well. So I had my buddy John Gabriel, who is like, I told him he's like the Picasso of the hunting industry, because he makes everybody's websites and all these t-shirt designs and all this stuff. So he designed me a shirt. I told him I want a shirt with like this deer on it, this buck on it that says "Don't buck with public land," because I geek out on puns. I like to use different types of puns and stuff like that, and just the play on words. I know I'm a dork, but I like it, and I'm running with it. I'm rolling with it, and actually we've already got it out there. We put it out a couple days ago. So we've got this t-shirt that says "Don't buck with public land," and it's a really cool design because John Gabriel designed it, and he's really good at that. The t-shirt is available for $25. We're taking 10% of the sales and donating those, in this case, from now until the end of quarter 2, 2021. Those proceeds are going to be going to Sportsman's Alliance, and we're going to have a lot of information coming out about Sportsman's Alliance because they do a lot of stuff that I don't think people recognize enough, and a lot of behind the scenes kind of stuff that is really impactful and really powerful. And then after that, my thought is either with the same shirt design or come up with a different shirt design. We'll run another one for quarter 3, and that'll go to a different organization. And maybe what I'll do is I'll put like a poll We have our Facebook group called Hunting the Western Huntsman. If you're not a member of that, jump on Facebook and join it, and because I think that's where I'll run the poll and find out, what organization you would like to see some of this money go to. But for now, it's going to go to Sportsman's Alliance for the next couple of months. So, again, there's not a lot of money or profit to be made on the T-shirts the way that I do them. I don't buy a bunch and inventory them. Or have an inventory and ship them out myself. I drop ship from a company, so the T-shirt does not even get made until you make an order. Anyways, that's why the 10% is where it is. It's at 10%. So if you guys want a cool T-shirt and you want to help out with a great organization like the Sportsman's Alliance, jump on the website. It's thewesternhuntsman.com. Hit the merchandise tab and find the T-shirt that says "Don't Buck with Public Land," and get you a T-shirt. You're going to get a cool T-shirt out of it, and the organization of our choice depending on which quarter, right now Sportsman's Alliance, is going to get money out of it. And as soon as quarter 2 comes to an end, I will cut a check, and I want it to be as big as possible because I really think that you listening to this, you want to make a difference as bad as I do, and I think that stuff is really important. Let's put our money where our mouths are and get you the T-shirt. We did put it up a couple days ago. Like I said, I kind of advertised it on the social media site so you could see it. We've had actually a bunch of orders already, so that's pretty cool. So don't miss out. Get you a T-shirt. Help out with conservation, and together we're gonna try to make as big of a splash and impact as we can on the things that we care about the most. Okay, this episode I have my friend Garrett Weaver, who is the host of the On Point podcast. And if you guys have not listened to On Point podcast, you don't know what you're missing. It's really a great show. Garrett is super articulate, and he's he's got a very unique perspective on a lot of things, and it's like really insightful. I really enjoyed our conversation with him. And in full disclosure, I have not even gone through and listened to it since we recorded because I just enjoyed the conversation so much. I didn't feel it was necessary. I didn't edit it. I didn't do anything. All I know is we had a great conversation. I had some whiskey flowing, and it was in the evening, and it was just a great conversation, great talk, and we really focus a lot on the woodsmanship aspect of hunting, because I think that's a point that a lot of people miss when we're talking about, everybody wants to talk about what arrows you're shooting, what camo you're using, how to learn to, use the wind to your advantage, those kind of strategic things. But not a lot of people talk about the woodsmanship aspect. And I think that it's a really important part of being a well-rounded hunter. And so that's what we talk about on this one. We talk a lot of woodsmanship. We talk archery. We talk hunting. Just in general, and Garrett is just a super cool dude. I'm really proud to call him my friend, and I think you guys are going to really like him. So with that, guys, let's get into it with Garrett Weaver. Thanks again for tuning in. Thank you guys a bunch for all the support you've given the show. Thanks for all the Instagram follows and the Facebook friends, and all our reviews are building on Apple Podcasts and all these things. I just can't thank you guys enough for all the support. You guys are wonderful. I appreciate it, and we will talk to you soon. Here we go with Garrett Weaver. Guys, from the sunny hills of Roseburg, Oregon.
But if by sunny you mean rain.
Very rainy and sunny.
There we go.
I love it. Of Roseburg, Oregon, my pal Garrett Weaver of the podcast, the super popular podcast, On Point with Garrett Weaver. I'm really excited to have you on, man. Thanks for joining me.
I super appreciate you having me on, and you and I definitely hit it off on Guy's podcast. I just kind of gravitated towards you on there, and I knew that you and I were going to be definitely doing a podcast.
Yeah, for sure.
Very soon. So I appreciate you for having me on. Yeah.
That was fun doing that one with Guy. I always like the banter that comes with like Guy and his perspective and all the people he brings on, and that was a fun. I actually just released that podcast like last week.
I'm doing it this week.
Are you? Everybody's going to be sick of it.
I wanted to be the last. Yeah, I wanted to be kind of like the last one, give everybody, and I had some other things going on, so I figured I'll just post it last. I don't, I just want to be the low guy on the totem pole and respect everybody else and make sure Guy got the, downloads that he deserves. So, I just, and I've been super busy lately too, but yeah, I just wanted to make sure everybody, I was just super, super happy to be on there and very humbled. So that's probably the funnest podcast I've ever been on, or at least in a long time.
Right. Yeah, it was fun, man. When you get all those personalities together, and I really enjoyed the contrast discussion because I talked about that in the intro when I released it. I'm like, you get guys like Garrett Weaver who are super tuned into their bows and they're super technical, and then you get monkeys like me, right? And that contrast is super interesting. I always like that conversation, and Guy did a great job with that. But for this episode, what I'm really looking forward to is, and it actually came up in that episode on Western Contours, was the discussion around woodsmanship and how it pertains to hunters. And before we go down that road, what I really like, Garrett, is the fact that you do a hunting podcast and I'm doing a hunting podcast. We were on a podcast with our mutual friend Guy, and what's cool about that is I get a lot of people that are like, well, that podcast is your competition or their competitors or kind of thing. And what people don't understand is, like, podcasting is not a competitive thing, right? We don't have radio programs that are on national radio at the same exact hour. And so I always like to take that part out of it. I've actually caught some flack from some podcast hosts in the past because I wanted to get them on my show, and they're like, I don't want to come on a competitor show. Well, we're not competitors.
What?
It's a weird thing. It's a weird belief, and I don't understand it because, first of all, again, like I said, we release episodes. People can listen whenever they want, right? Second of all,
correct.
In the hunting industry, and I was listening to your episode with the Blood Origins guy. What's his name, Robbie?
Yeah. Yeah. Good guy.
Dude, that guy, he says a lot of the same things I say, but he says it a lot more eloquently. And really, really enjoyed listening to that one. But the discussion you guys were having was talking about, like, this infighting that happens with hunting. And I feel like more podcasters should get together like this and have some of these discussions, because we have a lot of conversations with people out there. And so I feel like we're tuned into a lot of things that maybe some people aren't. And it helps us solve some of the problems that we see out there. And as hunters, I feel like we're just failing ourselves with how much fighting and infighting and discussion around, bow hunting versus rifles versus who thinks salmon should be extinct versus who wants to, all this stuff that's going on all the time, And so that's why I'm excited to have you on, man. You got a great show, by the way.
Thanks, brother. And likewise. And there's a lot to unpack there. And I don't know who in the heck you've been talking to, but I couldn't agree more with you. Apparently, I don't know if you listen to Gary V, but Gary V is like a huge social media content producing coach guy, and he couldn't disagree with those guys more too.
I've never heard of him.
He's talking about collaboration. Yeah, Gary V. I mean, he is the best coaching content creator out there. It's all free.
Oh, really?
I follow his Instagram. Everybody I know that's into creating content follows Gary V. And
are you saying Gary V is in Victor or Gary Z is in Zoo?
Gary V is in Victor, and he talks about producing content, what you need to focus on, what you need to do, how to produce it, and collaborating versus competition, and he's just echoing exactly what you're saying. And he's like, if you collaborate, the one hosting it maybe has a little bit more of the advantage, but I mean, really, it's and I've always used this analogy. If you look at guys that are trying to get more of a piece of the pie versus a guy who's I'm a baker, I'm making my own pie in the end, because you can't have a slice of mine doesn't mean I can't have a slice of yours, and it's not a pie we're trying to fight over. And I see both sides of the story. I really do, because there's only really so big of an audience, and an audience can only absorb a certain amount of content. But if you believe in your content and you love your content and your content's good, having other guests is only going to expose you to more people, right?
Yeah.
And that's just another at bat. And so I see both sides of it, but I definitely agree. You and I are 100% similar on your thought process there. And I love collaborating with other guys, and you just, you can have conversations with other podcasters that you can't have with anybody else because no one else podcasts. You can't have a podcasting conversation with somebody who's never been on an episode, never recorded anything, never tried to produce content. And it's just like having your own like little echo chamber of people to talk to,
Exactly. Yeah. It's like somebody's going through the same thing you are. And I wish I had more podcasting friends when I started, man, because I was a disaster. And and I still am. I still am for sure. But I found this this guy on Instagram you're talking about. I need help with that because I'm terrible at social media.
He's good, Gary man, and yeah, I started listening to him because the bro guys are like, yeah, Gary V, and I'm like, who the heck is that? And so I started listening to him, and he's got a mouth that's a lot like my wife. She curses like a sailor, and he talks from the heart. Yeah, talks from the heart, shoots from the hip, and I just love what he's about. He's just, I've stolen one of his things that I keep telling my wife, and I just keep talking to my wife about it, and kind of just saying the same thing over to over. This is kind of our theme this year is happiness above everything.
Yeah.
And because she's switching jobs, she's making a bunch of big changes, she's worried about contributing, and I'm like, hey, you know what? Happiness above everything. We'll make it work. Yeah. And that's just what we keep telling each other, is just happiness above everything. And if you do that, the dollar signs don't really matter.
Yeah.
So,
totally.
That's a little bit of a rabbit hole there, but
you're exactly right. Dude, when I stopped stressing about how my sound quality was doing a podcast, I started sounding better. When I stopped stressing about having like these big, planned out interview questions and all this BS, when I stopped doing that, the podcast turned out better. And so, anyway, it's definitely a rabbit hole, but it's cool talking to somebody else that does this. Sometimes it's just it's like a kinship, So.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So this episode, man, Woodsmanship. This is I was really taken aback when we were recording with Guy. And you started talking about, my focus is going to be talking a lot more about woodsmanship and, things along those lines, because I feel like for me, it's always this topic that I feel like a lot of people don't want to hear about, but they need to hear about it, right? And it's a missing thing. It's a missing thing, especially when we have a lot of younger folks that are getting into hunting that maybe have this sense of reliance on technology too heavily and don't understand the woodsmanship aspect of it. So, and we've talked about it a lot on my show, like the adult onset hunter. That is not just pertaining to them. It's sometimes we even have, I've been guilty of it, where maybe I've relied on things outside of the woodsmanship that maybe is not highlighted enough in terms of what makes a good hunter, what makes you successful, what can make you more successful, safer, and just efficient in the field. And this woodsmanship topic, everything can be funneled down to woodsmanship, in my opinion.
100%.
Actually, Garrett, before we do that, because in case somebody in my audience doesn't know who you are, tell us about your podcast real quick.
So it's a really similar to a lot of guys. We cover hunting, tactics, tips, try and cover different states and mindset and gear. Mine's a little bit different from most in the way that we get really technical with archery, gear, shooting tips, tuning, broadhead, flight, arrow setups. Mm-hmm. I would consider my strong point would be arrow setups and at-home tuning without using a press. And that's really been my niche. I've never grew up with a press. I don't like doing string swaps or cam stuff. That's not my wheelhouse. My stuff is, I got the bow, how do I make it shoot? And that's really my strong suit, in building a good arrow that'll shoot and do the job when it gets there. And teaching people how to do that along the way is kind of how I've gotten to where I've got now. Long story short, I don't know if you want the long story, but I started with a YouTube video back when the Halon 6 came out, showing off how far I could shoot. I think it was like
Oh yeah.
150 yards, like my first video. We have 2 cell phones. We're filming it with cell phones. The footage sucks and my groups are okay. And it's just, that's why I started. I was like showing off and I'm like, maybe if the right person sees this, I'll get sponsored, like I had these wild dreams out there. And guys started commenting, wow, that's pretty impressive, but how are you doing it? What are you using? And I'm like, I started answering questions and the guys were like, well, can you do a video on that? And that kind of snowballed into On Point, what it is today, where my mind's at for helping people and in my heart. And it just really, just snowballed into talking to you today. And so, that's really what it is.
Well, it's a well put together podcast too. And this is from somebody who's a podcast nerd, right? I listen to a lot of podcasts because I want to learn from other people that are really good at podcasting. And I also want to learn from people that are really bad at podcasting so I know what not to do. And that's what a lot of podcasters come to my show for. They're like, don't do what Huntsman does. That dude sucks. But I like the way that you format it, and it's just like there's something efficient about your show, right? You get a lot out of it in an hour or so.
I appreciate that.
And so you've got some really good episodes. On Point with Garrett Weaver. How'd you come up with that name?
Another funny story, actually. I have writer's block and creative issues because my YouTube channel is self-titled Garrett Weaver. So I couldn't figure out a name for that. And my On Point podcast, I actually had a list of a bunch of names, and I paid John Gabriel, who's an amazing digital brand designer and logo designer.
I just talked to him today on the phone. He designed my logo. I love that dude. He's awesome.
Yeah, mine too. And so I'm like, I got to create this podcast name and logo, and I have to do it tomorrow. And so I'm like, I got a bunch of names. I'm not in love with any of them. I'm going to send them over to you. Maybe that'll give you an idea. I don't know why I'm, asking you to name my podcast for me, but here you go. And he's like, what about On Point? I'm like, oh man, I don't like that one. He's like, well, you have it written down here. I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah. He's like, I think it sounds pretty good because from what you told me your podcast is going to be, On Point is kind of hits home, right? Like On Point with Garrett Weaver. Yeah. I'm like, I guess. I'm like, can you work up a logo? And that's kind of how it is. So he talked me into the name that I had crapped on earlier.
That's awesome.
And yeah,
dude, Gabriel,
he's a good guy.
He's one of those dudes, he has touched more aspects of the hunting community than people will ever know, right? It's funny with Gabriel. He has designed more logos and websites for so many different hunting community or industry, whatever you want to call it, I did an episode with him last summer, and I called it the dude behind the scenes, right? Because he's a great hunter, but he's also this super creative web building. Anyway, he might be building me a new website. I think I'm going to have him do a website for us.
Oh, right on. No, I would recommend him for anything. He's been a great guy to me, and I've never heard a negative word about him, man. I mean, he's a solid dude, great hunter, very persistent. He's smoked. Go ahead. Or no, go ahead. I mean, I was just say he's smaller than me, but doesn't, if you want to get rid of excuses, that guy's an excuse eliminator. He's small framed, but extremely, fit and just gets the job done. And he hunts with that. I call him Captain America. He probably doesn't know that, but I call Nick Schmidt Captain America of the woods. And he's just built like Captain America out there. And, he's he's like the opposite of John, and they hunt together. And I'm sure to keep up with that guy with the leg spread difference alone is quite the feat.
Right? Seriously. But, and what's interesting is so he got this mule deer tag for the Wasatch Front down outside of Salt Lake City, Utah, right? And it's this great tag. They have these monster bucks up in this area, super limited. And I used to hunt that when I lived in Utah years and years ago. I used to hunt that front, and I was never successful because it's archery only. I wasn't a great archery hunter back then. We're talking like the 90s. But I would get super close to these monster muleys. and just kind of blow it at the last minute. Well, he moves down there a couple years ago, and I'm talking to him, and he's like, yeah, I got this tag for the Wasatch Front, and I'm gonna go up and try to get a mule deer. And he goes up there, and in his first season, no, I think it was his second season, nails this monster mule deer buck. I was like, dude, quit making it look so easy, man. What are you doing? No, that's funny, man.
Yeah, the guy's good.
Yeah, for sure. That's what I love about podcasting is I've got like this big network of friends like you and Gabriel and all these guys that, you're all better hunters than I am. But I want to talk. Let's get into this woodsmanship thing, man.
Okay, let's do it.
I want to hear how you define it, because for me, how I define woodsmanship and why I think hunters maybe don't put enough emphasis on knowing woodsmanship and understanding what it is to be in the field, in the mountains, in the wild. For me, woodsmanship is when you go into the field, whether you're in red desert sand country of southern Utah, Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico, or you're in some of the coniferous forests of the Northwest, or the high 10,000 feet elevation Rocky Mountains. I don't care where it's at, but when you go into the field, you are at home. You don't feel as if you are a guest. And I think that a lot of people, when they go into the woods, they feel like they're a guest. And there's a lot of uncertainty that comes with being a guest. And woodsmanship will take that uncertainty, and it will remove that feeling of being a guest to maybe feeling more like you were at home. And that's how I define it. What say you? How do you define woodsmanship? And that'll kind of be the foundation for this discussion.
Yeah, so that's a tough question. That's a good question. So woodsmanship to me would be non-gear related hunting skills. So not shooting. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I have to eat my words on that one. Tracking an animal, knowing an animal's habits. When they're going to be bedding. Are they going to rebed? Is their first bed their legit bed? Knowing what you get to the bottom of a ravine, you're putting a stock. You have to anticipate maybe that's going to be a little sloshy or muddy, and then you're going to have to anticipate that sound you're going to make, or can you use that creek as to silence, the brush or the twig you're going to have to pop, I think it's a dynamic relationship between the hunter and the woods. I think that's my definition.
A dynamic relationship between hunters and the woods.
Yeah, I think that would sum it up, and that's so loose, but to define that, it'd be anything from the animals that you're pursuing to knowing the vegetation, the fauna, the terrain, what can you use to your advantage, what areas to focus on. Like woodsmanship to me is just knowing the animals that you pursue and the terrain and the environment in which you pursue them. Maybe that's a better definition.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, I mean, to me, it takes a lot of the gear out of it. It takes most of the gear out of it. I think shooting your bow is more of an archery skill than a woodsmanship skill, but it's part of it because, again, you're going to have to know if your arrow is going to hit the intended target shooting at the coast. That's not so easy sometimes because you have so much vegetation. So I would say it's more, it gets away from gear, and I think it focuses more on you. And when you take the light off of the gear, which is something that's probably more reliable than you are, a gun is more efficient than me. A bow is more efficient than me, more accurate than I am. I'm the most inaccurate part of that equation, and I always will be. It really comes down to all you, and that's the hardest thing to work on is you and your skills. And I think that's why it's not a sexy thing to talk about, because it's the hardest thing to talk about, and it's the hardest thing to get better at.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great point. Because yeah, like you were saying, there's, and I don't want anybody to take this the wrong way in terms of, it's not like I'm against technology. I mean, I use base map like crazy. I'm a huge fan of base map, and I even use Onyx. I have both of them. I'm strange that way. And I have a lot of the gear that makes us better and makes us able to stay in the field longer, and all those things. But when you take out, I always look at it this way. Like when I think of when I'm 16 years old And there, nobody had. So I don't know how old you are, but I'm 40. And I feel like I announce that on every damn podcast I'm recording lately because I'm upset.
31.
I'm upset about turning 40, man. I'm upset about it. But
oh, dude, I was in a bad mood after turning 30 last year. I was like, for a week, I was like, one step in the grave, dude. You piece of crap. You need to get out there. And yeah, I was just Debbie Downer on myself for like a week. Just hitting the gym harder.
just make the most out of your 30s. All I know is what's crazy to me is like everybody talks about how fast your 20s go, right? I feel like for me, the 30s went faster. And I don't know what happened. And it's like I feel like I wish I could go back to when I turned 30 and kind of figure out, because 30s is a great place to be. Let's face it. It's a great. You have a little salt. You're a lot wiser than you were in like your mid 20s.
Oh yeah.
And yep. I was in a band when I was in my 20s, touring around, drinking way too much. I don't remember like 2 years of my life, out of control. But the 30s is when stuff started, coming together and organizing. Anyway, getting off on a tangent here. Enjoy your 30s, dude. I don't know.
You seem like an axe man. Are you an axe man?
What do you mean by that?
You a guitar player?
So I am. I was like the front man, right? I had a band it was like a country rock band, and I played acoustic or electric. But that all came from me being a drummer. I was a drummer my whole life, and then I wanted to write songs.
My man.
Couldn't write songs on the drums, so I switched to guitar, and I'm a terrible guitar player. But I was a really good drummer. In fact, I turned down a full ride scholarship to college because of drums. I had a music scholarship. I turned that down so I could join the Marines, and that's what I did. And so,
oh wow,
that was stupid.
I know we're off on a tangent here, but you got me talking drums. Were you going to Cambridge or Berkeley College of Music?
No, U of U, man. University of Utah.
Really?
Yeah,
oh, that's crazy. I was in a very similar position. I never got any formal offers, but I started drumming early sixth grade and drummed up until my early 20s I call it with intent. Like I wanted to do that for a living, and then kind of just didn't want to make the sacrifices it was going to take to make it, and kind of just put down the sticks for a while. I still have my set in the garage, but
is it set up or is it just kind of stored away?
I just took it down a couple months ago and put them in the hard cases, but it's a good set. It was like a couple, what was it, I got $5,000 invested into it, and that was back in like 2004.
Oh yeah, that's a sweet set, man.
So it's a Thomas Star Classic EFX. It was this is a hunting podcast, but we're gonna have to talk drums.
Listen, there's more hunters out there that are drummers than we're giving it credit. Come on, you guys can hang.
Well, it was a Thomas Star Classic effects, and so that's a not a maple. That's I want to say it's a birch, but it was basically built after modeling, like the exact kit, color and everything, white silk. It was the same one that John DeMine was using from System of a Down.
Hell yes.
And I want to say Toxicity, but I might be wrong. But he was my favorite drummer, self-taught, went to Berkeley, which I was looking at going to Berkeley, and that's where he met the band, and he filled in one night and was like, dude, you kick our drummer's butt. And so, I was just nerding out on John DeMine. So I bought the same set, and I was drumming like 20, 25 hours a week, and just trying to make it. And so it was just, you got me talking about drums. I love it, man. I'm sure you can relate.
No, totally, man. I wanted to be a studio sessionist, and I was in high school, I was like, I was a big time jazz band drummer, and jazz is tough. That's a tough genre, right? And
you
so
got
that's
some chops if you can play jazz.
That's where all the colleges I got their attention was my my drumming chops were in the jazz band, and we won this competition in California, and it was because we had this like halfway through this, I can't remember the damn name of the song. We're totally down a rabbit hole here, but I had this epic drum solo in front of all these college, band, professors or whatever the heck they are. Anyway, Yeah, had letters coming in, and I was going to accept the one from the U of U, but I wanted to go into the Marines. That was like my lifelong dream, right? And there was like this time frame on it, and so I was going to go. I just wanted to go in the Marines, so I did. I went in the Marines, and it wasn't like I think I said full ride. It wasn't full ride, but it paid for a lot of my college. I even hid.
That's amazing.
I hid the letter from my parents so that they didn't know, because they weren't too hip on me going into the Marine Corps. They wanted me to go to college. I'm like, no, I want to go be a machine gunner. That at 18, that sounded like a great idea.
That's amazing. Huh? That's. You ever heard of the movie Whiplash? Watch that movie and then call me when you're done.
Okay. All right, I will, man.
It's one of my favorite drumming movies ever. It's not like Drumline. It's not silly like that. It's kind of like you being in the position that you were in, and being like competitively. If you're in college, you know it or not, you're competitively playing the drums for that seat that you're in. Oh yeah. Right? I mean, you're not just the drummer. You got probably 3 or 4 chairs behind you, and everybody's like, "I'm going to kill you. I'm taking your seat." My dad was actually, I think, first or second trumpet in I think your neck of the woods. Back he played trumpet and jazz. Played a lot of Maynard Ferguson and stuff like that. And
badass.
Yeah, I mean it's yeah, you got me talking about music and one more thing is my favorite drummer, which is Travis Barker. Not a fanboy, legit favorite drummer. He started off one of the best drummer, not the best drummer, most dynamic drummer in the world right now, only because Neil Peart died. But is he started off with jazz and grew his hands from there. And I mean, he's one of the most dynamic, rock, punk rock, alternative rock drummers out there, and that guy can do anything. And also marching band. He's got marching band rudimentary hands. It's just amazing. Very dynamic drummer. Yeah,
I did all the marching band stuff, and I loved it. I loved, and we'd play traditional grip and all that kind of stuff. But there was something about the jazz band that, the 2/4 and the 3/4, all these different times, and I just like had a knack for it. I don't know what I was thinking switching to guitar, because I was always a better drummer than ever I played guitar. But anyway.
I think I know what you were thinking is I've got songs in my head. I can't write them on the drums. I got to figure out how to put them on the guitar and show people what I want them to play.
That's exactly what it was, man. That's exactly what it was.
Yes, I did that same thing.
So I started playing guitar, and we put this band together when I was out of the military, and we started getting these shows, and come to find out I had a knack for making crowds at bars really drunk. And so the bars loved to book my band because I'd get the crowds really drunk. They'd spend a bunch of money on alcohol because we were rowdy, man. We were a rowdy-ass band. And anyway, awesome. It just blossomed from there. I'm glad I don't do it anymore, honestly.
Yeah,
my liver would kill me.
If we ever get together, we're going to be 2 peas in the pod there. That's badass. I love hearing stories like that.
We should have a hunting camp drum session unplugged around the campfire. That's what I'm thinking.
Oh man, you would probably teach me a thing or two. It's been 10 years, maybe 8 years since I've drummed.
Oh man,
like I said, with intent,
I'm rusty. I'm rusty AF, man. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Well, cool, man. We got a lot in common.
We do. We have a lot more in common than who knew? But I don't know if your audience wants to hear all that, but I love talking about other stuff besides that too. So
me too.
We're gonna have to definitely pick that up more off air as well.
Yeah, for sure. So, what were we talking about, man? We like something about
woodsmanship.
Woodsmanship.
Yeah, we were just getting into woodsmanship stuff.
Mm-hmm. So, and I guess, like, again, we got totally off on a tangent there, but I guess we should circle back to some woodsmanship and talk, because woodsmanship is one of those things that is not an easy skill to learn, right? It's not, like you said, a lot of people forget it because it's the hardest thing. And it's one of those, you can't jump on and just watch YouTube videos and become a woodsmanship or woodsman, whatever.
Right.
You can pick up things from it. Like you could learn where water is on a mountain, where you're most likely to find water, where you're most likely to find edible, berries, where you're most likely to see elk bed down for the day. You could learn those things, but a lot of that comes from time in the field. And I think that that's an important part of it. Now, you hunt a lot on the, like, kind of coastal Oregon, right?
Yeah, born and raised, pretty much you could call it coastal Oregon, and easily on the west side of the Cascades, and I'm only about an hour and a half from the beach. And so all the elk I grew up hunting and deer I grew up hunting were blacktails and rosies. And then when I would go, started traveling over east, mule deer and Rockies. But yeah, definitely more coastal than anything.
As kind of a side topic, I always like to ask this question: what's the biggest difference between hunting Roosevelts and Rocky Mountain? Because I've never hunted a Roosevelt.
There's some stark contrasts. So one is more territorial, and they don't have as large as a home range. The Rosies are, you find them in a drainage, or you find a drainage where they're in, and they're pretty much going to be there or very well near that area. And if you get one fired up and you get one bugling, your chances, I think, of killing him where he's at are higher than killing a Rocky where he's at. A Rocky will tend to cover more ground. We chase Rockies 3-4 miles, and Rosie, you maybe chase them 200 or 300 yards. So it's just a different dynamic. They seem to hold their own more. They do get very aggressive with the bugling. A lot of guys say that, Rosies don't bugle. I think the vegetation and just the way that people are calling to them lends to that. You really have to pierce through that canopy, and you have to pierce through the brush. They have to hear you. And then if they do hear you, you have to hear them. And I've seen it so many times. A guy gets out, bugles out of the truck on a landing or on top of a drainage, bugles. I'm already down in the brush. And then there's a bull bugling down here. I'm like, shut up, bull. I know, I'm down here. And the guy never hears him, fires up his truck and goes off. And that's happened probably 3 or 4 times where I'm on a bull that somebody else was bugling to, but never heard them because they just didn't get a little farther off the road or get to a vantage point where they could hear that echo or that sound travel. And it's just kind of different. So, but yeah, so it's a little more of a home range elk. They're less athletic in my opinion. Meaning that, like, if you spook a Rocky, he could go miles before he stops, depending on where he's at, the type of terrain. A Rocky or a Rosie may only go a quarter mile, or whatever it may be, maybe one drainage over. So just very, very different contrast there.
But it's so thick over there. Like a quarter mile is a lot more difficult than a quarter mile in, southern Idaho or something,
Oh yeah. I'd rather do, a mile, 2 miles over in Eastern Oregon without roads than do half a mile in the coast without roads. It is so thick. It took, my buddy killed one the other couple of years ago down in this crap hole that I've been avoiding for years. And finally I had somebody willing to go down in there with me, end up killing this 5-point. And it took 6 of us a few hours to get this bull out, less than a mile.
Jeez, man, that's nuts, man.
And it was, yeah, I've broken sights off in this stuff. I've broken pins off in my sights in this stuff. Just lost equipment, lost calls, lost everything. This brush will grab you, hold you, break your stuff, viney maple, salal, rhododendrons. There's all sorts of things that just want to rip your gear apart. I've had, first light last a week over here, the certain pants and stuff. And so
I want to try
a different animal.
I'd love to try
it. It's addicting. It's addicting. Once you get good at Rosie hunting and you understand and you find a spot where the Rosies are, they're probably going to be there year after year. Kind of a niche thing where if you have a spot, I don't know if there's any people in the woods that are more tight-lipped than a Rosie hunter.
I'll bet. Yeah.
Because if you find the elk and they're there, they're probably going to be there again, and you better keep that spot to yourself.
Yeah, I keep talking. I've got a couple buddies. I've got Mike Hers over out there in Western Washington, and Tony Wintrip, the elk singer. He's out there too. Those guys are studs at Roosevelt hunting, and we keep threatening about. I told him, if you guys want to come to North Idaho, and then we could trade off the next year. I'll come out there and you show me how to hunt a Roosevelt, because I'd be lost, but I'd love to try it. And what I like about talking to guys like you on either the Oregon or Washington coast, because it is super, super thick over there. North Idaho is similar. I don't think it's as thick, but it is very much canopy type kind of country. And so it really bodes well to this woodsmanship discussion, which, by the way, I think it's important that we note, like stopping in the dirt road in your truck and getting out and bugling, that's not woodsmanship.
No.
Now, I'm not saying I've never done that before, but I am saying I've never killed an elk that way.
Yeah.
However, I do know a guy that did that. So anyway,
I've done that a few times.
Yeah, I mean,
you just got to know the spots, and you got to park your truck. And I walk, a couple hundred yards. But that's
the key.
Than just I mean, it's.
I've gotten responses that way. I have. I'll stop in the middle of the road. I'll shut my truck off. I'll wait like 3 or 4 minutes, and then I'll start bugling. And it's a great way to locate a bull, right? To expect. Gosh, I don't know if I've told this story on the podcast before, but one time I did that, and it actually wasn't very far from where I live, my house, up on the Forest Service road. It's like 3 minutes from my driveway. I'm up there like 3 miles, and I get out and bugle, and I get a bunch. Actually, I cow called. I didn't bugle. I cow called, and I had a bunch of wolves howling back at me. It was crazy, man.
Oh shoot!
It was nuts. I was all excited too, because I had a pistol on me, and I had wolf tags. I'm like, oh, come on, bitches. And so I keep cow calling, then they just left. But anyway, interesting. So what got you into this woodsmanship topic, like the topic of woodsmanship? Where did that come from?
Really a selfish standpoint. That's my weakest area as a hunter, and getting honest and open and real with myself is like, if gear could kill animals, I'd be the most successful guy out there, because I've got a lot of gadgets and gizmos, and I've tried all sorts of things, and I shoot all the bows every year, and I've got long guns. I've got it all. And if gear could help me kill stuff, I'd be extremely successful. And, knowing what I know and getting around guys that know more than me, and really, like, for example, Brian from Day 6 took me over to Alabama, and, just hunting with him is, he's been on a lot of blood trails, because over in Alabama, you can pretty much shoot deer as many as you want over there. And,
it's nuts in the South, man.
Just seeing how many, animals he's been on, and just knowing what he could look at a blood trail and get more information than I could. And I didn't like that. I mean, I liked it because I was learning, but I didn't like that that was a weak spot for me.
Yeah.
And then being on blood trails here locally, and then hearing guys talk about another guy. There's a guy locally I need to approach him. He is the guy that people call when they can't find their animal, and he'll go find it for them. And he trails animals. He's extremely good, extremely slow, taking his time, but he will find your bull, your buck, if it's fatally hit, with very little to go on. And just knowing, bugling and cow calling, when, how, talking to people like Mike Batiste, and then knowing, like, dude, I got a lot to learn. Just the more I got questions and guests, and getting around people that are just straight up better hunters than me, the more I realized I got to get better at this area before I can get better at other areas. And this is why I'm not being successful currently, or more successful. And this is what's holding me back. And so really just an honest thought, or conversation between me and myself, and just really wanted to and I see this with a lot of people, you don't see on all the Facebook forums and all the Instagram posts, how do I become a better hunter? You don't really see that. Guys are too proud to ask that question.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not, and I'm willing to, put my ego down and just say, hey man, I just want to freaking learn. I just want to go back to just being a student of the woods, and not having to be the guy, just being a guy in the woods that's trying to get better. And really that's just been kind of a turning the corner mindset for me the last year and a half. It's just part of all growing.
Sure. It's such a how do I say this, all-encompassing thing, right? When we're talking about being a woodsman. I feel like that's my strong suit, and it's only because, I am long in the tooth, and I was born and raised in the wild in a lot of ways. My entire family, we are outdoors people, and that's just how it is. I know animal behavior. I know I know how they eat. I know how they breed. I know where they water. I know all these things. But I'm terrible at other aspects. And so I think that when we're talking about this, like your weak spot has been in the past, maybe some woodsmanship stuff. My weak spot in the past has been a lot of the gear kind of stuff. And it has actually cost me some notch tags. And what I mean by that is I can tell you that even this last September, and I think we talked about this on Guy's podcast, where I had this great call-in. I called in this bull, and I'd been messing with him for about 10 days. And his second to last day, I called him Mr. Chuckles because he just chuckled so much. He wasn't like he didn't bugle a lot. He just chuckled, And people listening in my audience might be rolling their eyes because I've told this story. That's how bent out of shape I am about this. I called in this bull. It was a great textbook call in. It is, if I could have gotten it on video, people could watch that and know exactly how to call in an elk. And I feel like I'm pretty good at that part. But when I sauced him with an arrow, and I thought he was dead. I don't know what I did wrong. When I looked at the blood, it appeared oxygenated, so I figured it was a lung shot. But it was a little darker than normal oxygenated blood, right? And that's where we're talking about our woodsmanship. I can identify that, but I still thought it was fatal. After 4 days of looking for this bull, it proved it was not fatal. Even a week later when I went back to do a crow check, it obviously was not a fatal shot. This bull lives. And what that boils down to, Garrett, for me is, like you were talking about how technical you are with your bow. I shoot a lot, but I have no ID. I do have ID. Even when I vote, I have an ID. I have no idea what the FOC of my arrows are. I know generally the spine of my arrows, right? I think it's 340 or something like that. I know what grain of arrow I shoot. And so when we're talking about this, we've all got our strong points and our weak points. Mine is that side. I feel like I'm doing something wrong with my bow in terms of the setup or something. Because when I hit him last September, I was sure, and it was almost sundown, I was sure this elk was dead. And I looked, I followed the blood for a little bit, and then it got dark. Went back to camp and was just positive that I was going to go back and recover this bull in by 9 o'clock. Never did. So it was, and obviously I'm still upset about it. It's as a bow hunter, we know that sometimes that happens. For me, I feel like that's happened too much. And I need to be more on the technical side and start really focusing more on some of the stuff that you're really strong at. So for me, I could learn a lot from you. I shoot an old bow. It's time to upgrade it. I need to quit messing around with it, basically. Does that make sense? So
yeah. It does, yeah.
I guess I say that in a sense that I don't want you to think that, you are less of a hunter because you're strong on one side and not so strong on another. I think that every hunter has a strong side of it. I have a deep-seated childhood passion for wild land, wild country, backcountry, and just places that I always like to feel like I'm the first person that's ever been there. And I know that's not the case, but that's my thing, and it's been like that ever since I was before I can even remember. And so I feel like I'm really strong on the woodsmanship side, but because I'm really good at finding elk. I can always find deer. I can always find elk, but getting a notch tag on them, sometimes I really lack on that side. And a lot of it is because I don't know my arrow setup. I don't know, what my bow is going to do, because sometimes this old bow I shoot is inconsistent. Is there a way in your mind that you could tie all that together for people listening and even me? Like, tie all that together. How does woodsmanship apply to knowing how technical you need to be with your gear and how much technology is necessary to make you more efficient? All these things that kind of encompass or envelop like just a well-rounded hunter. What is your perception of that? Pardon the interruption, but we got to talk about the show sponsors because they're the ones that make this show possible. I want to start with Scree Gear. Scree is extreme mountain gear. It's high-performance hunting attire and gear, scientifically tested camo patterns, and all backed by a great company, and I wouldn't recommend it to you if I didn't fully believe in it. I've run the Scree for a couple of seasons now, and I tell you what, if you want to compare the quality and the durability and the effectiveness of this gear, go for it, because you're going to find that you're not going to drop a fortune and you're still getting all the benefits of what you can see out there in terms of high-end gear. They offer a complete layering system for all terrains, for all conditions. It's gear designed to adapt to the weather. It's rugged. It's backed by a lifetime guarantee and warranty. And what I really like about it is the VIP sizing and exchange program. So basically, if you order the hard scrabble pants and you get them and they show up and they're not fitting right, you just send them right back for free, because they send you the return slip label that you just throw on your packaging and send it back. It doesn't cost you anything, and they replace it with a better size for you. So Scree Gear, check them out, and don't forget, at the checkout, use promo code The Western Huntsman for 15% off and free shipping. Heck of a deal, great company, great gear. All right, moving on to Tacticam. Guys, Tacticam is our newest sponsor, and I'm really excited about having them on board. If you've ever wanted to film your hunts and have specific and unique, like, point of view type kind of angles, the Tacticam is the way to go. It can connect to your bow, it can connect to your rifle. They've got the film through scope. Make sure you're checking regulations on all of that, because that changes in every state. But I film in Idaho when I'm hunting, and I have the Tacticam attached both to a head harness and a shoulder harness, as well as like this flex mount thing, so I can get multiple angles as I'm calling in a screaming bull elk and get it all on camera. The gear is great, and they also have other cool packages like the Reveal game camera. It's a cell cam, so you can set that up if you're managing whitetail property or something like that. It's perfect because it texts you in real time when pictures are coming in. The other thing that I really like from Tacticam is their new fisheye camera. For you fishermen out there, when you're trying to get that perfect coverage of filming your fishing trip, man, this thing is badass. It gets the whole wide angle of it, and you can control all of these cameras through an app on your phone in real time. Zoom in, hit record, zoom out, pause it, stop it, all the things right there in your app in real time. Great sound quality, 4K video recording. Get you a Tacticam. And I heard a rumor that we're going to have one hell of a giveaway coming up on the show for some Tacticam gear, so stay tuned for that. Go to Tacticam.com and check it out. Last, but certainly not least, I want to talk about Hoffman boots. Hoffman boots are high-quality, high-end, great traction, rugged mountain boots that you need. Every hunter needs a good set of boots, and you could really drop a fortune on great boots, but the Hoffmans are going to give you everything that you can get, just like when I was talking about with Scree Gear, without breaking the bank. That's what I love about the Hoffmans. If there's one thing you don't want to chintz out on, it's great quality hunting boots. You've seen them. They've been up there hunting, people that chintz out on their hunting boots, and they're slipping and sliding all the way down the mountain. The sole's coming off. They've got everything. Their feet are soaked. All that is going to be prevented with a great pair of Hoffmans. I run the Hoffman 8-inch Explorers. It's a great boot, and I could personally vouch for that. But they've also got another great product called the Summit. And that's another popular boot out there. Got the Explorers in insulated, non-insulated, 6-inch, 8-inch, and just check out Hoffman.com, and you can, Hoffmanboots.com, and you will be able to kind of pick out all the different options and things like that. They've got a great warranty, great company. Jim Hoffman, the owner, is a great dude. And at checkout, don't forget to use promo code Huntsman10, all caps lock, for 10% off. Enjoy it. Let's get back to the show.
That's a really good question. And I think I think having the tough conversations with yourself, you're going to know what area you're inadequate in or that you need to improve on. So you just identified that I've got the woodsmanship skills. I'm getting the opportunities at the animals. I'm finding the animals, but the red zone, I'm struggling in the red zone, and I think it's on my equipment aspect.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I would start. And I think for folks that are wanting to figure that out for themselves, I think they probably already know at heart, and they're probably already buying gear, to try and mask an issue. Maybe it's not a bow issue. Maybe it's a mental shooting issue. Maybe it's target panic. Maybe you're just rushing the shot, whatever it may be. Hey, raising my hand here. I've done that, So,
no, I have too. Yeah. I mean, we're all guilty of that at some point, right?
Yeah. And so I think in order to tie that together, it's going to be individualistic for each person. And you're going to know, and especially if you hit the woods, I can't believe I didn't see that coming. I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I did this instead of that. If I would have done this, I would have killed that animal. If you have a lot of those situations, I had one last year, man, where me and Anthony were on a bull. I'm shooter. It's almost the last day, and we were working on a bull, and he wouldn't cooperate. He would just move about a half a mile every time he bugled in what appeared to be on very flat ground and very open pine.
Was this in Oregon?
Yes, it was in Oregon. Yep. And what appeared to be random. I mean, he didn't have anywhere certain he wanted to go. He had bulls bugling around him. He didn't have any cows. I think he was just, honestly, he didn't know what he was doing. He was just running around bugling and just looking for a cow and didn't want to get his butt kicked. And because he wasn't a big bull.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, dude, this is stupid. Like, we're not going to get on this bull. We got the wind right the whole time. We've been on him for about an hour. And I'm like, you know what? Every time I bum rush a bull, I've gotten on that bull. I'm like, we had our bikes. I'm like, bugle, get your foot on your pedals, and we're going to haul ass to where we think we're about to get busted, and we're going to get off, and then we're going to close the distance before he moves again. And when, we get on him, he bugles on the other side of a thicket after we pedal for about 200 or 300 yards. We rush in, and instead of going around the thicket, because he was just in the open area on the other side of the thicket, I'm like, I have to use this thicket in order to not get busted, but to get a shot. And Anthony didn't say anything, but he's like, man, I would have skirted it, and you probably could have got a window. I mean, it's all hindsight, but we had two different opinions. He kept his to himself, never told me. And I'm like, here's what we got to do. Here's what I'm going to do. And if I would have chose to go around this other side, instead of putting myself in the middle of a thicket where I wasn't going to get a shot opportunity until I reached the very end of a thicket, and knowing that bull was very transient, I probably should have just went around it and just used the edge as cover. But that's something, I won't make that mistake again. I won't make the mistake of not barking back at a bull again when he barks at me. We had a shot this year at a bull. I had a buddy call me. He was really excited. He's like, I got this bull bugling. I put him to bed this morning. I need a caller. And so we got back in there. Immediately the bull rips off, and we're 60-yard line. I mean, from the touchdown. I mean, we are right there. And we get in, and then he bark chuckles as Mike's closing the final distance. I mean, he's maybe 30 yards from this bull. I'm probably 80. And so I cut him off with a bark chuckle. Right about as he finishes his, I bark chuckle back at him. And that bull just kind of like, what in the hell? And skirts into a shooting lane, right? Skirts into a shooting lane. And, I'm like, how I knew to do that? Because I haven't done that in the past and got no shot opportunity. And I've listened to guys that knew more than I did. So, guys like Dirk, who are really good callers, if they bark at you, bark at them back.
Is Dirk pretty good?
Dirk's a really good caller. Yeah, everybody I talk to says he's really good. The bro guys say he's fantastic.
I'm totally kidding, man.
No,
I'm totally kidding.
I was like, yeah, he's really good.
He's like a lot better than I am, man. He's like a world champion caller.
Dude, the guy.
I just like to give him shit sometimes.
Well, I've never seen him in the flesh, so he could be full of it. You never know.
I've had him right here in the Broken Time studio. with his bugle tube, both as Dirk the bugler and as Doug Flutie, and both ways he's pretty damn good.
I'm sure.
You mentioned something. I wanna. It's a little off topic, but I'm curious about it. Super curious about it. You'd mentioned your bikes.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? You like ride your bikes in the mountains kind of thing? Like I was watching Born and Raised once, and they were using I don't know if they were those e-bikes or what, but they're cruising these old logging roads to get to these areas. And it makes a lot of sense. A lot of the country I hunt, that wouldn't make sense. But how do you use bikes? What are you? Can you give us kind of like a synopsis on that?
So there's a lot of timber ground out there, and e-bikes aren't welcome on most of them. So electronic motorized bicycles aren't welcome. So this is like you have to pedal. And over east, I almost say almost all of them are no e-bikes. And so you find a gate. You have a lot of area behind that gate you can go hunt, and you just pedal. And, for us, it's cover ground until you get a bugle. We have an area that we're going to, or a drainage that we're going to, and probably based off of prior bugles, prior experiences, or just this looks good. And knowing what the elk are probably doing in that area, you can kind of really make judgment calls and play it to your odds. Well, they probably should be doing this. Let's go do this. And I honestly, the biggest thing is the wind. I play the wind. You have to.
Oh,
there's just no getting around it. And so
and the wind comes
sometimes
back
we have
to
to access something.
Yeah, the wind comes back to woodsmanship. I mean that's a big deal, man. When I kind of cut you off there. I apologize.
You're fine.
I'm just curious about this bike situation because I saw the Born and Raised guys doing it, and you're like in the same. I don't know what it is about like the Roseburg, Oregon area. There's all these great hunters that come out of that area. But like the bike thing is interesting to me because there are some area. I was telling you, it doesn't lend itself very well to some of the units that I hunt, but there are some units where there's these miles and miles of logging roads where if I had like a mountain bike or something, I can cover a lot of ground in a short time.
That's exactly what it is. And, a lot of guys hate on this, but it is so effective. It's not even funny. You cover ground and you're looking for the player, right? I mean, you're not focusing on one drainage. You're focusing for an elk that wants to play the game. And that is 100% the game plan for what me and my buddies do. And if you have a bike, imagine how many more bugles you can rip off and how many more drainages you can cover until you find that player.
So
right?
you guys are like
playing God.
You're cruising these logging roads or whatever on the bikes, and you're stopping every few hundred yards or whatever and bugling.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I bugle. First of all, I bugle.
Sweet.
I never bugle once. I'll always bugle more than once.
Yeah, me too.
And whether it's 10 seconds apart, 30 seconds apart, a minute apart, 5 minutes apart, like I'll bugle 3 or 4 times in a drainage. And I think there's a lot of guys that bugle once and then move on. That's a huge mistake. You got to bugle more than once.
Totally agree with that, man. I hear that. I'll be down in the middle of a drainage, in the bottom of one, just some nasty asshole, right? And I'll hear this like 4-wheeler chugging along the road up, a few hundred yards above me. He'll stop. He'll turn his bike off or motorcycle or 4-wheeler, sorry, and he'll bugle, and then he only gives it like 30 seconds, and then all of a sudden I hear that motor start up. It's like, dude, what are you doing? I mean, I bugle. When I stop and I'm bugling, sometimes that's a 5 to 10 minute situation. Just let it play out. Let it play out. Paint the mountain with that bugle and just let it play out. Wait, time, man. Anyway, sorry. I'm passionate about that one. I love that topic.
Yeah, we were on a really premium elk hunt on Oregon a few years ago, and it was just funny. We started figuring out that the second bugle was the one that the bull always responded to. And so I always try and get Anthony to bugle first. And then I got this one knowing that it didn't matter who bugled. The bull was going to answer on the second one. And so I just kept bugling on the second one and then rubbing it in, kind of just talking shit. I'm like, yeah, see, he likes my bugles more, man. It's this is what you got to do. Just rubbing it in, like it was almost comical, but how many times have you got a bugle on the second, third, fourth bugle, and guys are like, damn, that guy's just bugling up a storm. What an idiot. Well, I'm an idiot and I get into elk. So I don't know what guys hate on guys that just bugle every 200 to 300 yards. But if you understand,
but they only bugle once. Yeah. Like you were saying, it's stupid. Like I think you just kind of basically alluded to that. It is almost never on the first bugle that I get a response. It's always on the second or third or fourth. That's my experience with it.
Yeah, there's been tons of scenarios where we're hunting flat ground, maybe over Eastern Oregon. A lot of this is over in Eastern Oregon, but over on the coast as well, even more so. You need to bugle more often at the coast, in my opinion. But so let's just pretend that we're hunting, a tamarack, flat or a slope of a pretty good hill or a mountain. And you have all these little drainages. I mean, how did you know that your echo or your bugle reached more than 200, 300 yards? And if you can barely hear a bull at 200 yards, let's just say you get a bull to bugle at 200 yards. How loud is that bugle? How hard did he bugle? Like, what pitch was that bugle? Did you barely hear it? Now take that to an elk. Okay, they got better hearing than you do, but you don't. So you're going to have to at least get within that 200 yards and keep bugling, right? And because your ears just aren't as good as an elk's, and maybe they are hearing you, you're just not hearing them. There's always that scenario. I always wonder when I'm bugling somewhere, first of all, how many bulls are ignoring me, how many hear me, and how many did I not hear? And so I just every time I bugle, I expect a response. I do. I expect a response. I don't get one, maybe 10% of the time, but I'm not shocked when I do. It's because eventually you're going to be right. Eventually you're going to get an answer. You just have to cover enough ground. And I've got other theories on bugling that, are a little in the fray, but especially on the Rosies. But there's things that I do that other guys don't do, that the other guys don't like, but it works for me, And so knowing, listening to guys like Mike Batiste or the elk magnet guy, those guys really know their stuff and they know the language. And, not every bugle is equal. Certain bugles mean different things. And that's all part of the woodsmanship skills.
No, and you're exactly right. And I one thing I think it was Michael Batiste that I learned this from. But one of the things, I had last September. It's probably the 12th or the 13th or so, sometime pre-15th of September, right? And I let this bugle off, and I don't go full bore. This is another thing that people really mess up with bugling. They get out of their truck and they walk 100 yards. And they rip off this nasty, meanest, gnarliest, kiss my ass kind of bugle you can think of, right? And it just rumbles the ground. It's like Shania Twain's song, "Make the Earth Quake." And it's like too much, right? And what I found is I'll do these like almost coyote sounding bugles. It's just real quick, and I'll listen. A lot of times I'll get a response off that first one, but usually it's going to be the second or third one. And I build up a little bit, so that second bugle is going to be a little bit more aggressive or a little bit longer or a little bit louder. Then the third one is going to be a little bit more aggressive than the last one. And it was on that last one, this particular time I'm talking about, I get from probably 150 yards away this elk, and he goes, "Ooh." How many people don't pick up on that because they don't wait?
Yeah.
They don't wait long enough. And I had a great call in on that guy, but he wouldn't come out of some brush, so I never got a shot on him. But that's what you're looking for. It went from to all of a sudden this bull was pissed, man. He was just rumbling and coming at me, and he was raking, and it was just this great call in. But again, he just never presented a shot. But that's what. I guess that kind of segues into this other topic that I want to talk to you about. And well, actually, you brought it up. That's what does it for me. That's what makes me happy. That's what makes me enjoy my hunt, and that's why I hunt. Is those call-ins with elk because September elk archery hunting for elk in September is kind of what makes me tick, and I love that. Even though I didn't get a shot on that bull, I remember that just as much as the call-ins that I do get a shot. And so you had talked about before we hit record, commit to doing what you want to do and focus on enjoying the woods and worry less about other factors, right? And go back to the basics. What's like your message with that?
So and I think it was a meme, and I think somebody quoted Michael Waddell. Maybe they didn't, I don't know. But there's somebody posted something, and it really stuck with me. And it was, this year, commit to hunting with what you want, how you want, where you want, when you want, and don't worry about the haters. Don't worry about what other people are thinking or saying. Just do what makes you happy, right? Like, do it how you want. It's your hunt. It's your tag. It's your money, and it's your time. Like, do it your way. Like that one song, I did it my way.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Frank Sinatra.
That's really what Frank Sinatra. And yeah, I had it on tip of my tongue, but I couldn't think of who it was. But it's just, happiness above everything. And then I know I said that earlier, but I'm more happy when I'm not worried about what other people think, and I'm only worried about what I can control. I can't control the elk, but I can control my effort. I can control how good I sound. I can control how often I bugle, how often I cow call. I can't control other hunters. Every year I get screwed by other hunters every year.
Oh yeah.
So it just happens. I am like an asshole magnet out in the woods. I find the biggest douchebags who just, I swear, I don't know what it is.
What do you mean by that? Are they like a bunch of Doug Flutie's just screwing the pooch, or are they?
No,
tell me about it.
I've had guys walk. I had in Idaho, your home, well, not your home state, but your state of Idaho.
They were probably Oregonians.
It could have been. It probably was. So I first time I went over there, everybody's super friendly. They're like, don't judge it off of this year. It's really warm. It's not a good year. Usually there's way more bucks, and come on back. And here's where we usually focus if you come back. And I'm like, dude, this is like the Twilight Zone. No one is this friendly in Oregon. And so I go back, late season archery deer. And we located a decent buck, 150-ish buck, and he's in this little drainage with a few does, and I'm thinking, man, there's enough brush there where I could probably make a play. And it's blowing. Like, that wind is, when the wind's blowing, usually it's pretty damn predictable because it's blowing in one direction. And so it just was blowing up the drainage hard. I'm like, I think I could make a play on that buck. If I can't, I'll have to come all the way around. And I'm working this whole thing, and I'm behind a gate, and we parked at the gate. We're actually camped at the gate. And these guys see me and my stepdad. I know what they saw. They saw us pointing as I'm looking through the spot and scope. So immediately those guys see something, and we're about a mile behind the gate, and they follow my tracks. It's like 3 or 4 inches worth of snow. They follow us all the way in there. And, we're 2 miles deep at this point, and I'm now glassing into the drainage a couple 100 yards from the buck. And now there's 3 or 4 other bucks in there, little ones, and a few does. I'm like, okay, this is definitely a happening, little drainage here. And these guys, talking like you and I are right now, come over the drainage, and I know it was on purpose, come over that little drainage about 200 yards above us and start talking and spook every freaking deer out of that unit except one little forky. And they come over after it's all done, and they're like, you guys see anything? You guys see that? You guys see anything? I'm like,
man,
dude,
I hate that.
Oh, I know what you did. You did it on purpose. I'm like, we were after a nice buck, but he seemed to have ran off,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be a dick, but at the same time, you know what you did. And then, so what do? They keep walking out the road that we're on, even though we beat him in there. And so, there's stuff like that. I had a guy who drove up on me, public road, right? Public road.
Mm-hmm.
But if you see a guy who has a bow in hand and you see a bear and he's walking towards that bear with a bow in hand, you're assuming, hey, that guy's probably going to try and shoot that bear that's about 60 yards below the road. Probably should let this play out.
Yeah.
Well, this guy bombs down. I'm barely leaving my truck. I mean, we're working my way towards the bear, and he pulls right up to me, and the bear runs off, and he's like, hey man, what are you doing? You target practicing? I'm like, dude, and I talked to one of his buddies later. He knew exactly what I was doing.
Was this in Idaho too?
He wanted to shoot that.
You said this was
This
Idaho?
was in Oregon.
Oh, Oregon?
This was in Oregon. Yeah. And so I just, and I've had way worse stories than that where guys will hike in, I'll be parked at a spot at 3:00 in the morning, and then guys will drive in half an hour before daylight. They'll walk through the unit, spook everything out of there, and then hike out just so I don't kill a buck that maybe they were after. Like it. And I mean, I just every year, like last year, you got me on a tangent. Last year we had guys, I know they didn't do it on purpose. Maybe they did, but we're watching this 300 something inch elk for about an hour, and there's no way to kill him. You just basically have to enjoy the show, him and his 30 cows as he's playing with his cows, and just enjoy the show. And, hopefully he goes and beds in an area where you can put a stock on him when, around noon or 2, and when he's getting restless, and put a stock on him then. And these two guys bebop through the meadow and just push the whole herd off. Almost, you would have thought it was on purpose.
Jeez.
And it's just silly stuff like that. But I don't own the woods. I'm not saying I own the woods, but I count that as sportsmanship too.
It's just manners. I mean, it's manners, and that's one thing there is definitely a level of. Or not a level, maybe a percentage would be a better term. There's this percentage of hunters out there that just don't give a shit about anything but themselves. And that goes for when they're hunting in areas where there's other hunters. That goes for they don't give a shit how they portray themselves on social media when it comes to like anti-hunters and all these other organizations out there that are looking to, ruin our lifestyle essentially. They don't give a shit when it comes to conservation. They take, and they don't give anything back. There is that percentage, and unfortunately, it's that 10% of those kind of people without the manners, without the conservationist minds, without the the spirit of let's portray a good hunting ethic to the general public who doesn't hunt. It's those kind of people that ruin it for the 90% of us out there. And that's one of those things that gets my blood pumping like you wouldn't believe. And I'm like you, man. I seem to attract a lot of those assholes out there that do that. I've had bucks shot from underneath me where clearly they knew I was going after that buck. And they dude literally pulled up on the road and shot from the highway this buck. And just stuff like that. And you had the Blood Origins guy on, and he was talking about how that like the biggest threat to hunters are hunters themselves. And I couldn't agree more with that statement. I feel like when we're talking about threats to hunting and our lifestyle, our way of life, everything that we pursue, the biggest thing, I'm not worried about PETA, right? I'm just not worried about PETA. PETA and a lot of these other anti-hunting organizations are cottage industries that make money off of lawsuits. Like, they don't want hunting to actually go away because then they wouldn't have funding from their erroneous lawsuits.
They wouldn't exist.
They wouldn't exist. And so that's just silly. Not to say that they don't have there's not threatening things out there. Here on my platform, we're well aware of them. We're fighting against them all the time. And that was another thing that he brought up on Blood Origins, that Robbie, when you guys were talking, is he was talking about how, they, I don't know how to put that. In terms of the anti-hunting organizations, it's always going to be there, but it's, how did he put that? Dang, I'm totally drawing a blank. And it was such a dynamite point.
Well, it's, I mean, you're never going to get the far left to come to the right, and you're never going to get the far right to come to the left. You're fighting over the middle ground, and you're fighting over the people that don't really know what to think, but have an opinion, but don't really know what way it leans. And the infighting is going to kill hunting way more than the PETA people that you're talking about.
Yeah.
They don't care. They don't care about bow hunting versus rifle hunting versus mechanical. They hate hunting, right? They are unified. We are so broken up into so many different little cliques and echo chambers. We can't stand to talk to one another, and we all hate each other, and everybody's wrong for using a mechanical versus a fixed blade versus a compound, a trad, a crossbow. God forget, crossbows don't belong anywhere. Like, everybody hates crossbows.
Why are crossbows that's such a hot topic?
Because they're not a gun and they're not a bow.
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know. I mean, I would shoot one if I had one, but it's just, we're so divided, and that's really the best thing. If I was an anti-hunter, all I would do, and this is kind of like the Russian bots that they call, there's, I listen to Joe Rogan quite a bit, but he's talking about, he had a guy on about how a lot of these Facebook groups are actually like Russia or China, and they're setting up meetings with, like, say, the Proud Boys versus BLM, and they'll set up two meetings at the same time on the same street to try and start fighting between the two, and it's all just a diabolical little plot, but yet no one is. Yeah, I mean, they're just trying to pit people against each other. Well, if I was an anti-hunter, I would be starting all these tiny little micro wars between hunters, and I would keep everybody so divided they could never get unified to anything. It'd be genius. It'd be like an evil plan. Well, they don't have to do that because we're doing that to ourselves. I mean, we are so petty, just petty. Like, why would I care what Jim uses? I don't care. I like Jim. Jim's a cool guy. He's a good hunter. And if he's having fun with a mechanical, not that you do, but if you're having fun with that mechanical and you're having good success with it, and you're shooting a 380 grain arrow, 320 feet per second, then awesome for you, dude. Like, I've got buddies that do that. They're very successful. They shoot way farther than I ever would.
Is that what it is with mechanicals? They travel faster? Is that what the draw is to mechanicals?
No, but the guys that I'm probably going to eat my words here I'm not going to eat my words. Guys aren't going to like what I'm about to say. But
that's the beauty of a podcast, man. Come on.
Yeah. The guys that shoot mechanicals are more likely to shoot a lighter arrow. Is that a fair statement? I think that's fair.
I think so.
The guys, I think that's, I can tell you for sure that is 100% true. Based off of the hundreds of people that I have polled, probably thousands of people that I've polled, that I've gotten questions from and answers back from the polls on elk hunting forums and stuff like that on my YouTube channel. Guys who shoot mechanicals shoot lighter arrows, when in reality they should be shooting probably heavier arrows because of the energy loss. But that's just the mentality. It's fast, light, and big cutting diameter. That's a whitetail Eastern style. That is what they do, and that's works for them. They're only shooting
with mechanical. You're still talking mechanicals,
with
right?
Mechanicals.
Yeah.
With mechanicals. I mean, they're a lot of the deer they're shooting are 120 pounds. Like the Alabama deer I shot. Dude, that thing probably wasn't even 120 pounds.
Dude,
it wasn't that big.
I shot a whitetail in North Carolina, and 120 pounds would be pushing it. It would be pushing it. Like, this thing was, it was taller than my golden retriever, but body size wasn't much different.
Well, some of these whitetail bucks are going to have 200 plus pounds, and still, that's the size of a calf elk.
Yep.
That's a yearling. That's a yearling elk, and I would, I'm thinking of a deer. My requirements of what needs to be on the front of the arrow, they drop drastically. I mean, I would shoot a mechanical at a deer. I honestly, in reality, and know that it would probably do the job, but in reality, the reason I don't is because there's too many scenarios where I wouldn't, and I would have things go sideways. Like, I shoot through brush, I'll shoot, and that thing would deploy the first twig I hit. I know it would. It would deploy the first viney maple limb I barely nicked. And the arrows that I'm shooting with the broadheads I'm shooting through those limbs. I'm cutting them off, and I'm punching through that deer. And my arrow's sticking 4 or 5 inches in the ground on the other side. Like, I'm shooting that setup because that's what works for me. But that's also what's proven itself to be successful in the environments that I hunt. If I'm hunting a whitetail out of a tree stand and there's hardly any cover, and I'm shooting them out of a whatever they call them field, PRC, or I don't know, there's a fancy name for those fields they hunt.
I know what you're talking about.
I probably sound real stupid to an Eastern guy right now, but and I'm shooting in a cornfield or a bean field. I don't have any worries about that thing, early deploying until it hits that animal, because there's nothing to deploy it on, really. So it's all relative and perspective. I heard this years ago, and I gravitated, and I held on to it in my mind. But perspective is a unique, or I should say, common sense is a unique perspective and it's based off of one's experiences. So what may be common sense to me may not be common sense to a whitetail hunter. Like a 350 grain arrow mechanical does not make sense to use for hunting around here. It just doesn't.
No,
so
and I've
common sense is that would kill. Yeah.
I mean, I've never shot a mechanical because you can't use mechanicals in the state of Idaho. So I've never shot one.
Yeah.
No, you
we
can't
just made them legal here in Oregon. Yeah, we just made them. It's kind of funny. We made them here legal in Oregon. People are, number one, what are you going to shoot? Fixed blade. And then, but I was pro mechanical because I'm pretty liberal with the way that I think about bow hunting. I want you to use what you want to use. I want you to do you, man. I want you to have fun, go out there, find success. If you suck at tuning your bow, a mechanical is an awesome choice. It really is. It's a great choice because it takes a lot of the tuning out of the equation. You just basically shooting a field point. And so, I mean, they really do have their place. And
sure.
I've had a mechanical in my quiver the last 2 years, and I reached for it on one hunt. I had an 81 yard bull, beautiful bull. I'm like, dude, this is like the perfect situation for it. There's no brush. I'm going to smoke this thing out in the middle of the unit. I grabbed it, took it halfway out of the quiver, put it back in, grabbed my fixed blade, and smoked that bull pass through. Like I couldn't do it.
Well, one of the points that you made there was you shoot what you're happy with, and it's all on that premise that we were just talking about. Like for me, I don't give a damn who shoots a mechanical or versus a fixed blade. I don't argue with people on Facebook over it. I don't care. For me, I'm a very holistic hunter in a sense that I rifle hunt, I bow hunt, I fly fish, I bait fish, I spin fish. I don't have I don't get real caught up in these arguments that sometimes happen on social media, especially. I think social media is like going to be the thing that kills hunting. Because between the arguing on Facebook and between the dudes that hang a buck in a garage and beer bong fucking beer out of the esophagus of this buck and then post it all over Facebook, that's the kind of stuff that gets in front of people that may not be anti-hunters, may not be pro-hunters. That's going to change them right there. That is so disrespectful, whether you're a hunter or a non-hunter. And the stuff that they post. And then all the infighting amongst the hunting, different hunting factions, I guess is one way to put it. It's so detrimental. It's so detrimental to everybody, and we all just need to kind of relax, take a step back. Like I'm a bow hunter for elk. When it comes to elk, I am strictly a bow hunter. I've never shot an elk with a rifle. I'm very much a bow hunter. I judge anybody who goes out and rifle hunts for elk? Like in Idaho, you can get the A tag or the B tag, right? And it's like this rivalry. You're an A tag hunter, meaning you're primarily a bow hunter. You're a B tag hunter, primarily because you're a rifle hunter. Like, I don't have that. I don't care. Rifle hunting has its place, and it's very difficult. It's not like I'm snobby about being a bow hunter. Does that make sense? I know rifle hunting has its own challenges.
You're better than a rifle
Exactly.
hunter.
Yeah, I am not better. In fact, I will tell you that I bow hunt for elk in September because I don't think I'm good enough to sit there and have the discipline to spot and stalk an elk during the rifle season. I like to call them in. That's my thing, and that's the only way I know how to hunt them. It's just it's something that kind of keeps me up at night sometimes, Garrett, like in terms of like how the hunters, how we infight, and how all this tension and these things build up, and everybody wants to argue and rip each other apart. Like hunters will treat another hunter worse about a disagreement about how they hunt than they do an anti-hunter. It's ludicrous.
Right. 100%. I couldn't agree with you more. And it's just the high horse pedestal theory, whatever you want to call it, is I'm more pure than you are because I used a trad bow or I used I keep my shots at 30 yards. Well, then you're going to freaking hate me because I don't. And I will triple that. Like you and I may not get along. I'll get along with you, but you're going to hate my freaking guts because I take the first shot inside my effective range. And it's, I've stood by this statement for years. When I started many years ago, when I started getting into long range shooting, with the rifles. Their shooting instructor said something that, I didn't come up with the statement. Some other dude did. If you're that dude, congratulations, take credit for it. But I've kind of like, I make things my own all the time. I've said this and I've said it, I'll say it again. Not an original thought, not claiming it is, but here's what a long shot is. A long shot for an animal or any archer or any rifle hunter, if you are hoping to hit your target, that is a long shot for you. If you know beyond the shadow of a doubt, you're going to smoke that target, kill that animal, or hit exactly where you're aiming or extremely close thereof, then that is a shot you should take.
Yeah.
And that is how I've decided what's a good shot for me, what's not a good shot for me. Also, very scenario dependent. So if the animal's really twitchy, he knows I'm there, and he's really, his buddies are twitchy and everything's like falling apart kind of per se, versus a mule deer that's just chewing his cud watching you and doesn't care. He'll let you shoot him at 60 yards all day long. He won't duck the arrow. Like, I've done that. It doesn't happen. Like, I don't know if I've ever had a mule deer duck my arrow. I've had one.
I have,
I should not have taken the shot.
I have.
Yeah, I should not have taken the shot. We were driving down the road. I hopped out ranged, and he was at 60 yards. And I thought, yeah, I've never had an arrow, And that the one time where he was super alert, he was sketched out. I just should have just realized I forced it, and I made a stupid decision to even shoot. And my arrow was there, and he was probably 10 yards gone. Like it wasn't going to happen.
Cool.
Blacktail and whitetail, very different animal. Very different animal. I mean, mule deer, man, I don't know how many mule deer that will just let you watch them shoot them. Like I'm looking at a buck right now, a nice 3x4. I shot a few years ago. Let me watch them shoot them. And
that's their age. That's that magic age, man. When they're 3 or 4 point, man, they will just stand there. And they're like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Yep. It's awesome. I love it. But I had a guy on my show named Mike Bozarth, and he said, my trophy room is my freezer. And I really liked that statement, because that takes we're all competitive, right? And we all want the most mature animal. And we all want, like, who doesn't want a big trophy elk or a big trophy buck? I pursue them all the time, and I'm guilty of that. But at the end of the day, I really do want a full freezer. And but I don't judge people that pass on little bucks because they want a big buck. I don't judge people that shoot little bucks. There's actually exceptions to that. There are some times where there are exceptions to that. I got to say that, I guess, at a disclaimer, but I just don't judge other hunters as to what they hunt, what their goal is, what their method of take is. I don't judge any of that, because at the end of the day, we all have the same goal. We want to pack our freezers with this wild organic meat, and we want to be able to pursue this kind of life without anybody infringing on our right to do it. And that is, I think, at the end of the day, when you strip all the nuances of bow hunting versus muzzleloader versus rifles versus 6.5 Creedmoor versus a 300 Win Mag, you strip all that away. We've all got the same goal. And I noticed this years ago. I've been fly fishing for years, right? And there's this thing in the fishing world where, fly fishers can be snobs. They can be super snobby about what they do. And
we've got them around here.
Yep. So I fly fish. I was fly fishing this river in particular that I'm thinking about, and I was killing it all summer long, and then fall hit, and I knew that the pool that these big rainbows were hanging out in, just to the nature of the temperatures outside, and it was heating up as the end of summer, early fall. They like to hang really low in the water. So I set my fly rod on the bank, and I got my spinning rod out, and I started spinning with some weight to kind of drag this lure on the bottom, and I started catching fish like crazy. And this fly fishing dude comes down and starts giving me shit about not fly fishing. I'd already caught several trout on my fly rod, right? He starts giving me shit for using a spinner rod on this river. And he's like, well, I mean, this should be a catch and release only. And, it takes a real skill to catch him on a fly rod. And he's just like lecturing me. And I'm like, dude, I have caught 12 fish in the last 2 hours between my fly rod and my spinning rod. How about I just drop kick you across the river for lecturing me? Like who does that? Who does that? And that's
Right.
where, and this was before social media, and it just drives me crazy. Like, quit judging everybody for how they hunt, what they want to use to hunt, all that kind of stuff. That's a whole other podcast, I guess. I don't know where else to go with that, other than I think hunters need to calm down on social media. You're not that big and bad as everybody else. Relax. If you got a problem, what are you doing about it besides bitching at people on Facebook?
Right. Well, first of all, if you have enough time to go on there and be a part of a thread where you're contributing that much, then you got too much freaking time on your hands. You're not, you should be out in the woods. You should be out shooting your bow. You should be out at the gym or on a run or hiking with a pack on or breaking in your new boots or whatever it may be. You're fletching arrows or, if you're on those threads and you're doing that shit, then you've got too much time on your hands. And that's coming from a guy who doesn't really contribute on those. I tried a couple times, and every time it just ended in a disaster where a guy is, the world's greatest hunter, but Jason Phelps refers to him as holding a bluegill. He's the world's greatest hunter, but his only picture is of holding a bluegill. Well, dude, like, if you're such an accomplished hunter, I should be able to flip for 5 minutes, just seeing all your beautiful hunts and your trophies and your kills and your groups. And all I can see is you holding a bluegill with a beer belly and your shirt won't cover your belly button. I don't respect
probably got
your
a smoke.
Right.
No,
it's just, it's all relative. And
for sure.
I'm like you, man. I don't care what other people use. I don't judge. We have these guys on the North Umpqua who are, I call them the elitists. And, it's barbless. First of all, it's barbless. But you can use spinning rods with a fly bubble. And that is like bridging the gap for folks that don't have the time to go out and fly fish, but want to enjoy watching a trout, just smoke a fly on top of the water. And me and my dad do that every Father's Day. We've done that for 6 or 7 years now. And
dude, that is
just watching
super effective in like high mountain lakes. That's one of the best ways to do it. Get a spin rod, bubble, and a fly on the end of that. Yeah, it's a great way 100%, to do it, for sure.
100%. And I've even got my own little methods down to where I know what flies to use depending on the sun. Like I'm a fisherman at heart in my head, but really I don't have the time to be that good to go 10-2 and not, rip the line away from the reel. And I understand how to fly fish. I fly fish before.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't have the time not to whip off 5 flies before I finally get my cast down. I don't have that time. And it's just, I've had people stop and give me the lecture, and it's like, hold on 1 second, fish on, okay, what were you saying? Like, I just don't care, man. Like, I know the laws. I've been lectured on the laws, how I'm breaking the law.
Yeah.
And I've had guys, argue with the regs. Yeah. It's just silly, but
it just boils down to, go ahead.
I say back to the woodsmanship stuff, man. I mean, I want to go back and before we even got onto the drumming, I know where you were headed. You were talking about when you were younger. That's where the rabbit hole started, is when you're like, back when I was younger, you were going to talk about the woodsmanship and your mentality when you were younger. And you and I had that conversation a little bit off air.
Yeah.
I think that's a great area to hit if you wanted to hit that, but I want to go back to my mentality back when I was in my early 20s, mid 20s. I was figuring it out. I was failing a lot, but I was having more fun in the woods then than I am now. Right. And
I think that's a great point.
Shit was just more simple.
It was so much more simple. And before I got on that rabbit hole, that's what I was saying. When I was 16, I had this 77 Chevy pickup. I'd drive it to a trailhead. I'd go hiking up to go hunt by myself. I had Nike tennis shoes on. I had Levi's on. I didn't have a cell phone, all this stuff. And you know what? I would be successful. And I would notch tags in these things that we get so... There's such a loss of focus sometimes on what's important and how woodsmanship applies. I didn't know I had woodsmanship when I was 16, but I did. And that's why I was successful. And so on to the point that I know we're running super long here, but to the point that you're making, I want to tell people that maybe have not focused on the woodsmanship aspect of it, that you don't know what you're missing in terms of the enjoyment of the hunt. Because when you know what is happening around you and you no longer feel like a guest in the woods, the enjoyment factor goes up tenfold whether you notch a tag or not. And it's great stuff, man.
Yeah.
What say you?
Well, I know when I was figuring out bow hunting and I was doing very unconventional methods, but I was finding success the hardest way possible. And I loved it. I freaking loved it. I was out there by myself. There was no Instagram. I actually, my brother dropped off the DVD, and I've thought about posting the DVD. It's like with a handy cam. The footage absolutely is like the shittiest footage ever. It sucks. It's an old handy cam kind of footage, but I'd
actually like to really, I'd love to see that footage.
Yeah. Oh, I've thought about posting it, but every time I get close to, I'm like, man, I just kind of want to keep this to myself. Like, this is my, I mean, maybe it would help people and, see where I am. I'm not a huge accomplished hunter, but seeing the shit that I'm using now and some of the animals that I've killed and the hunts that I've been fortunate enough to go on. There's so many more I want to, but seeing where I started and where the passion started and how bad I was, maybe that would help people. But I've opted to not post it probably 5 or 6 times. I've been on there and I started like thinking about editing it a little bit. And then I'm like, no, I'm going to play this one a little closer to the chest and I'd share it with a friend, and stuff. But, I just haven't had the heart to share it yet because it's just so personal. And I know that probably sounds really stupid. It's
no. Actually, dude, that is not stupid. Not stupid at all.
Yeah. Well, I mean, back then, man, I was out there by myself. And, for example, I had some of the best woodsmanship skills as far as understanding the actual animals I was pursuing. When I say actual, certain particular bucks I was pursuing in particular units. It didn't matter whether it was in the middle of the day on 100 degrees. If you'd say, Garrett, go show me a buck, I could drive you in the woods, walk you a mile, show you right where a buck would be bedded, right in a unit. If he's not in that spot on that little bark mulch looking stump that's tore up, but and now there's like a nice little bed below there. He's not there. He's going to be down here towards the creek farther. He'll be bedded right over here.
So
I was that in tune with the animals.
When you were young, were you targeting specific bucks? Is that what you're saying?
I was targeting, it got to the point, yes and no. I was very opportunistic. I would shoot the very first buck. Spike didn't matter. I just wanted to find success. Having said that, I knew what bucks were in there and where they were. And I would, in hunting those bucks, a lot of the times they're still in bachelor groups that time of year. I'm talking the first 2 weeks of archery season, first week and a half of archery season. They're still bachelored up, blacktails are, and they're still involved about the first week and a half, 2 weeks.
So like August time frame you're talking?
Yeah, we're talking last week, August. Basically, I've talked about this a million times on my podcast, but people are probably tired of hearing about it. But and I created my own way. I created literally my own way of hunting blacktails, and it was literally probably the hardest way possible. And so what I would do is I had this unit. I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units I could hunt behind a gate. I focused on that. That's literally all I hunted this particular way. And I would go in there, I would glass. And it got to the point where I would go up there about 5 days a week. I would fight fire. I'd come off work, get off about 4 or 5, head to the hills, and I would be up there till dark and hike back down. I'd do that almost every day. And I knew where the animals would be. So come, August 26th or whatever it may be, I hike in there, and what I would do, I forgot to let this down. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little excited here, but
no, you're good.
I would go in there, and this is what's very non-conventional. I would go in there, I would spot them. I would remember where I spotted them, what time of day, and how often, right? I'd keep like a mental track record, and then I'd go in there, and I would try and stalk that buck, and I'd try and stalk that buck and see how close I could get. And you got maybe 200 yards from it. That's the closest you could get. It's too brushy, way too dry. A twig the size of your finger would echo through the whole freaking canyon. Like, it was just impossible. And so I'm like, yeah, I need to re-engage. So I started going in there, and I started finding trails that would lead in and out that I could sprint. And I started wearing my Pumas. And
Pumas? Like tennis shoe?
Pumas. Yeah, tennis shoes. And I wear blue jeans, Pumas, and a T-shirt. And I'd go in there and I'd haul ass down there, and I knew where he's bedded, and I'd see how bad I could jump him, just scare the living shit out of him.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would pay attention to what trails he was using on the way out. And then I would figure out what trail he was using depending on where he went. And then I would run my ass back up to the top of the unit. And then I'd run around the unit on a logging road. And I would try and beat that deer to the trail where it crossed the road. And it took me about a week, 2 weeks, maybe 5 or 6 times before I actually started beating the deer to the road. And I'm talking their tongues are hanging out. Like, yeah, like
that's
I was
nuts, man.
I was a savage back then, dude.
Okay,
I mean,
so you're talking about, like, earlier in the podcast, you're like, oh, I don't have a lot of woodsmanship kind of skills, blah, blah, blah. Dude, that is woodsmanship. That is great woodsmanship. You know where those deer are going to be busting out, and you're cutting them off. That, my friend, is woodsmanship.
Well, I mean, I wasn't married. I had a full-time job, but it was firefighting, and I was off most nights, and it just, times change, and I lost that.
Are you still a firefighter?
No, I fought woodland fire for 3.5 years, and then I, got a better job that actually paid my bills. And I was making $10.20 an hour fighting fire for the county, and making horrible money. But long story short, I had the time, I had the drive, and the passion and the desire to actually. And this is all before I killed my first buck with the bow. This is all before that. Like, I was in high school, and just trying to. I just graduated high school, maybe even, I forget, but it was literally that's all I thought about. And yet you're right, that was woodsmanship.
That's badass woodsmanship.
I mean, I was in amazing shape. I was beating deer out of units before they got, like, who does that? And
I've never done that.
it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. And I'm sure I could still go in there, and I'm sure they'd still take the same trail. But it's a little too grown up to do it now. But long story short, I want to get back to, just enjoying the woods, and I don't know what if you're allowed to cuss on here, but F Instagram.
Yeah,
dude. Like, I just want to enjoy.
I gotta tell you, I sometimes try to avoid the F word, but I know I dropped it when I was getting all irritated about how hunters are behaving. So fuck it, man. I mean, say whatever you want.
Yeah, well,
I'll mark it explicit.
There we go. Well, all mine are marked explicit.
I did too. You never know what people are going to say, man. So I don't care. Whatever.
I just want to go back. I want to get back to that. And that's the whole reason of this podcast. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. I was figuring it out, and I sucked. I blew 20 stalks, 5, 10 shots at bucks, missing, airballing. I bought a rangefinder. The next deer I shot at, I killed with a rangefinder because I was always high and low. I didn't know what an angle was. I didn't know 80 yards downhill wasn't 80 yards. Like, I had no idea. There was very little skill, very little knowledge, but the passion and the drive was there. I eventually found success, and I actually found success when I actually had people with me, which was even amazing. I had my best friend and my brother with me, and we got it on video. Didn't get the actual shot on video, but we got me tracking the deer on video, and I saw it go down, and you just couldn't wipe the smile off my face. And I want to go back to having that passion and just getting away from that, because knowing that I don't have the confidence today, knowing that if you told me, Garrett, go find me a buck, and you didn't give me any heads up, I couldn't do it right now. Like, I could go find some deer, but I couldn't go tell you that deer is going to be bedded here. Here's how big he is. Here, I could not, I don't have that skill now. And it drives me nuts that I don't have that ability. But I started bow hunting actually because doing that with the rifle was way, way, way too easy. I mean, there was one year I took 6 buddies up in 6 trips. We killed 6 bucks. I mean, it was automatic. It was automatic, man. And we ended up killing way too many bucks out of there. Kind of just blew the spot up for a couple of years, and it's back again. But that's to me, that's hunting. That's woodsmanship. You don't have to be the best hunter. You just have to be driven. You have to be passionate. You have to be willing to fail. And there's some really unorthodox shit. Who else? I've got guys that told me I've wanted to do this for elk, but I know I get so much hate for it. But I want to go out and I want to stalk elk about a month before season, and I want to go see where they go. I want to go see where they bed after they get pushed, because that's when you know you're a true elk hunter. Is if you a rosy hunter, it's not about where you know where they're at, it's about where you know where they're going, because most likely someone's either going to shoot that bull or bust that herd before you got a chance at them. And if you know, hey man, I'm just going to let everybody else push them right to me, here's where they're going to be.
Yeah.
Like that to me is a good rosy hunter. And that's something I want to do with archery is here's where they're going to go. Here's where they go when they get pushed, cause it's that local with rosies. And now sometimes the bigger bulls, we're figuring out that they'll travel 7 to 10 miles to go grab some cows for a week, and then they'll disappear. Right.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of stuff we don't know about rosies, but there's some definitely some consistencies in there, and I'd like to apply the deer logic to the elk with the work ethic there. I think that'd be pretty cool.
That would be cool, man. I don't know anything about rosies, but I want to just touch on a couple of things that you said there in terms of like, hunting what makes you happy. It's funny you say that because I'm super passionate about archery hunting, right? But I also have this weird attachment like that comes out of probably my childhood with rifle hunting. There's something about cracking off a shot with my 30-30 lever action, and it's open sights. I mean, like there is something about taking a deer with that thing because this rifle has so much history. And I always have this policy where I'm going to go on a rifle deer hunt every year. And I kill a deer every year with that damn same rifle I've been doing it with for years. And it's just, it's because that's what I enjoy. I enjoy archery hunting as much as anybody that's super passionate about archery, because archery puts it into kind of like this different, dimension, right? And so I enjoy the hell out of it. But man, there is this level of satisfaction I get when I put a deer down with my old freaking I'm such a dork, dude, that I have a name for this rifle. She's called the Hell Bitch. It's the Hell Bitch, man. If anybody's watched Lonesome Dove, you know what I mean. It's the Hell Bitch. And the Hell Bitch has shot a lot of deer, and I take her out every year. And it's a great time for me, and so I guess the point to what I'm saying is I appreciate your perspective and your openness, because I think a lot of people can learn from that, and I'm hoping that a lot of people that listen to this will learn a little bit from that about how we all as hunters we just have this perspective as hunters with the goal and the end goal in mind. It doesn't matter what our methods are. It doesn't matter how. I don't care if you're a person that gets a deer tag and you go out one Saturday a year, or you're a person that goes insane and you spend 3 months in the field during the fall. I don't care. You're my peeps. And I hope that you look at me as one of your people as well, because we have this thing called hunting that we need to protect, and there are things that we're up against, and if we don't come together and start understanding each other better, and not fighting about some of these things that are just irrelevant in the grand scheme of things, we're going to lose this thing, and I mean that. I've seen such a shift in the dynamics of our culture and our society, and how they look at hunting and how we portray hunting, and how that kind of comes together in this like battle. We need to smooth that out, or we're going to be in trouble, because we are outnumbered as hunters, right? There's only about give or take 10% of the population in the United States of America are active hunters every year. Those are some major odds. And so, now, man, this has been a great conversation. I feel like we can just keep going for like another hour or so, but we probably better cut it off. Tell everybody where they could find Garrett Weaver, where they could find On Point Podcast. Give us the breakdown on that, and we'll close it out.
Yeah, so if you guys are looking for me on YouTube, just type in my name. It's Garrett Weaver, 2 R's and 2 T's. I'll pull right up. I've got a separate channel just for the podcast because I got tired of posting non-videos, just audio on my regular channel. So
yeah, I do that.
if you listen to it on YouTube, I mean, I have the On Point podcast YouTube, but no one really gets to listen to podcasts on YouTube. So I have the Garrett Weaver podcast or Garrett Weaver YouTube self-named channel, which is where all my videos and tutorials and reviews and all that stuff goes. And then anywhere podcasts are found, and recently just got approved to be on the Pandora.
Dude, how long did it?
Pandora.
Let me ask you something. Pandora. How long did it take you to get approved on that?
About a week, I think, or 2 weeks.
What? It took
Something
me a
like
year,
that.
man.
Yeah.
A year. I signed up for that a year ago, and I just got approved to be on there like a month and a half ago. Ludicrous.
Yeah, mine's a little more recent than that. I think it was probably a week or two ago, and I haven't posted about it yet because I don't know how many people listen to podcasts on Pandora, but it's another avenue, you know.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't have any sponsors. I don't make any money off of it, really. I have a few patrons, and they're very loyal listeners, but that's really about it. I will never charge for an episode, and that's just the goal I've always had. And it's just I just want the information to be free and accessible to everybody.
Yeah, I love it, man. I dig it. I'm the same way. I don't do the whole charge for podcasting episode kind of thing, but no, that's awesome. And what I would say to the audience out there is so Garrett, I've listened to your podcast kind of on and off a little bit since I've been listening to podcasts, which is a long time. But I really like what you do. I really enjoy your podcast, especially the last several episodes you've had. You're just a really good host. You're a really good conversationalist. That's why we're into this almost 2 hours. And so I think it's worth everybody that's listening to this to check out the On Point podcast with Garrett Weaver. And keep in mind that it's all about perspective, and the more perspectives you hear, the more the better ability you're going to have to kind of form your own style of hunting and your own perspective and your own just overall philosophy on this whole thing we call hunting. So man, I appreciate it. Do you have a website?
I did, and I just got rid of it because I wasn't. I was just like, why do I even have a website? So I got rid of it about a couple months ago.
Okay.
And it wasn't serving any purpose. Honestly, I just had a website to say I had a website. So I got rid of it, and I don't sell swag on there or anything. People don't listen to my podcast to buy my shit. So, I got rid of the website. If somebody wants to buy a hat, I don't even have any hats anymore. I'm going to have to order some more, but, there's some stickers that I give out for free. I mean, if somebody wants,
I know, man. That's what you could buy stickers on my website, but I mean, if you just run into me somewhere, I've always got them on me. I'll give you one. So they're like $3 on the website, but I don't care.
I think I sold like 3 hats, or not even 3 hats, maybe 5 hats on the website in like over a year, and I'm like. And every single one of those, I had to direct. Like, they got a hold of me and said, "Hey, man, can I buy a hat from you?" I'm like, "Yeah, go on the website." I'm like, why am I paying the website who's taking a chunk of my money to sell that hat? Why am I even doing it? And I'm shipping it myself. Like, this is so stupid. So I just got rid of it.
Everything I do is all drop shipped right now because I can't handle that part. And it works, People are buying T-shirts like, a couple a week or something. And that's cool, but it still ends up the website, the hosting, and everything else. It still costs me a lot more than I make. So
it's like
whatever.
Yeah, I think mine was like $35 a month, and I'm like, this is silly. That's I mean, that's I don't know. I mean, it's just if I was running like mad volume, maybe it would make sense. But I didn't start the pod. I started the podcast in hopes, honestly, of maybe doing this for a living. But since I've been doing it for a while, I don't know if that's going to be available because it takes 40,000 listeners or downloads an episode to do that. And I'm not really there. I'm not even close to being there.
Yeah,
and it's just I mean that you're pretty giant. I mean, you're in the top 10 if you're getting 30,000 downloads an episode. You're your Hunt Backcountry, your Cody Rich, Aaron Snyder episodes. I mean, you're one of those 3 guys. I just not there. And so I kind of backed off that. And if it goes that way, it goes that way. But I'm just doing it for fun. And I think that's going to turn out a better product anyways.
Sweet, man. I love it. I love your attitude. I love your perspective, man. We need to do this again in the future. You going?
I am totally down. Yeah. To have you on the podcast as well. I mean, I love you, and I could talk with you for hours, brother.
Yeah, man. It's a good conversation.
Like 2 hours.
I didn't, and when we set this up, I didn't even know you were a drummer. So, I mean, that's a whole other element to it. Badass.
Yeah, I can talk drums for an hour.
Yeah, we can geek out on that for sure. So, no, man, I appreciate you coming on the show. This is awesome. We had, I think we covered a lot. I think just as kind of like a summary, for you guys listening out there, if you don't understand the importance of woodsmanship, I feel like you need to kind of reevaluate where that comes in, because woodsmanship will carry you through a lot of different aspects of hunting, and it'll make you a better hunter. And a lot of people, think about the hunters of the early 1900s. Without all the technology that we had, they relied solely on woodsmanship, and they were really, really good at what they did. So keep that in mind. Garrett's a great guy to reach out to on this. It's at On Point with Garrett Weaver on Instagram. And Garrett, thanks again for coming on, dude. This was awesome.
I appreciate the opportunity, and I'm sure we'll be having you on my show here very shortly.
Let's just keep in touch, man. We got a lot to talk about in the future.
Sounds good. All right. Well, you have a great night, man. I appreciate it.
You too. You made it all the way to the end. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. We sure appreciate your support. This is Jim Huntsman signing off and reminding you to check us out at Instagram at The Western Huntsman and on Facebook at The Western Huntsman. And you can also check out the website at thewesternhuntsman.com. Thanks again. We'll see you guys next time. Stay Western, and I'll see you on the mountain.